Hi, this is not me. So, okay, so this is, I type my name into Gmail like I'm sending myself an email, and this comes up like, oh wow, I've always wanted Whitlock at pdx.edu. I somehow got it. That's great. Only to find out that there's another David Whitlock out there who's the senior property accountant. I'm sure he's a great person. Anyway, and apparently he's been receiving all of your POAs and emails, and oh my gosh, yeah. So. I'm very sorry about this. I think it's caused you a lot of confusion. It's caused me a lot of emails. With you guys trying to figure things out. So if like you got your grade report and it's like I submit all the POAs, how come everything's missing? This might be it. So just forward them to me at the correct email address, which is whitlock@cs.pdx.edu, or my Gmail. But you use the whitlock.cs.pdx.edu. And I'll get them, and it won't be late. It might be marked as late, and it's cool. I got it. You'll get full credit. So super sorry about that. That's weird. That's never happened before. And I'm going to try to reach out to this guy, and I don't know, like maybe he can add a profile picture that makes it look like it's not coming from me, like if it's some like young handsome guy, or like it's not Dave. It's the wrong one. So I don't know. Okay. Yeah, it's been one of those weeks, hasn't it? Yeah, let's close that tab. Okay, welcome to week 5. I think as you've seen, week 5 is where things get kind of crazy, right? So it's finishing off those projects from the first half of the course. It's getting your project 3 due. Some of you were able to get through it pretty quickly. Those other people had lots of questions. There were lots of things, especially if like your projects 1 and 2, you had to go back and fix things. And of course, you got the koans. So hopefully, you're getting all of that done. For those of you who might need a little extra time, practically speaking, if you can get the assignments to me by Friday at 5 p.m., it's not gonna I won't hold it against you. It might be marked as late, but I'll still ask the graders to grade it. What's most important to me, and I've said this before, I'd rather have the graders grade a good functioning project, even if it happens a couple days after the due date, than have to spend their time looking at it like, oh wow, look, all the test cases fail, 0. It doesn't make any sense. So please figure that. So if you need a couple extra days to make it good, take the time. So, we've got some options for what we do tonight. The first thing I'd like to do is open up for Prime Minister's questions. Let's talk about what you guys are observing, what you need for your projects. I would like to introduce Project 5, but actually a quick poll. Based on what you're focused on right now, how deep should I go into Project 5? Yeah, I'm guessing not. And that's fine. What I'll do is I'll plan on focusing on sort of like going deep into GWT and showing how you debug it and showing all the pieces parts inside the archetype. That'll be next week. And boy, if there's anybody that's like so far ahead that they want to get started, go watch the recording from last year if you really want to get started. On Project 5, but I give it to you now so that you've got 3 weeks, because it's it's another order of it's another order of magnitude, but it's another sort of different beast from the first 4 projects. So what I'll do is I'll show you how to run the archetype. I'll sort of show you how to basically cover what's there in the project assignment, but we'll dive into details next time. So we'll do Prime Minister's questions. I'll talk a little bit about Project 5. Won't go too deep. And then let's figure out how we want to do the rest of our time together. I can talk more about Project 4. I can, I could, someone in one of the feedbacks on the survey, oh yeah, another thing we got to talk about, said, hey, I want some advanced object-oriented programming stuff. I'm like, okay, I got a design patterns lecture from like 2003 that I can dust off. We could talk about that if you'd like, something different. Let's decide, and hey, if you want to do some pair programming or do some group programming or whatever, we could work on Akata also. But let's do Prime Minister's questions first, see how long that takes, talk about Project 5, and then decide how we want to use the rest of our time together here tonight. So, questions, yes?
So, looking at the schedule, we had a lot to do this week.
We had a lot to do this week. Yep.
Fine, but I know, at least for myself and at least a few people in this class, we haven't had a chance to start Project 4 until this, pretty much tonight.
Practically speaking, yep.
Is it possible, given that we have some time for Project 5, that you can just put the Project 4 due date a week, so that we just all hold, like a decent number of us aren't trying to crunch it, and then it's on us to get everything done on time?
Yes, I mean, we could do that. It comes at the expense of Project 5, though. And so,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, if the way I see it is, that way it doesn't penalize anyone who's just starting this week. And if you're ahead, you can just go. It gives us a little more flexibility.
I'm thinking, I think I've done it before in the past, and I think that makes sense, and it does give you two full weeks to focus on. Wait, does that? If this is due the 8th, no, that only gives you 1 week for. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and also yeah, so again, Friday, split the difference. So sort of plan on like a couple more days, meeting that hey, I guess please. As you've noticed, it's hard for me to keep up with the volume of stuff during the week, especially at the beginning of the week. Hey, weekends I have availability, but sort of like Mondays and Tuesdays are sort of family stuff and everything, and so it's hard for me to answer those, kind of last-minute questions when it's due on Wednesday. Yeah. Let's keep it for now. Well, let's sort of say informally, and actually, if someone sends me an email, I'll go and actually officially change the date, like in the grade book, to be on Friday. And so then it won't be marked later or anything. It's not a big deal. So let's do that. We can check in on it next week. So hey, if people are having problems, and if I'm not able to answer them in a timely fashion, let's make sure that we're focusing on learning and understanding our problems. But we don't. Yeah, even though it seems like we've got some time left, I think with the 2 big assignments or not. So. Let's plan on doing that. So maybe a couple extra days or split the difference between the two, but I want to make sure you have enough time for your Project 5s. Because that, for me, that's the fun project. That's where it's like a graphical user interface. I want you to have the time to be creative and learn all about that.
Thank you.
Yep. No, thanks for raising that. Okay. Project 3. Let's start there. So, saw lots of questions about that. Some tonight at office hours. Where are people at? Are there questions that people still have with regards to Project 3? What are some of the, how should we say, learnings? What are the crazy things that you came across in Project 3 that you had to learn? Yes?
Date class is terrible.
The date class. What is terrible about the date class? Tell me about your terrible date.
All the years start at 1900.
The years start at 1900, yes.
All years are relative.
Well, I mean, so time 0 is, whatever, January 1st, 1970 or whatever, but yeah.
Right. When you give an integer data value to the year field, to the constructor,
Yes.
it is that integer value plus 1900.
Yes, and I think that's why that constructor is deprecated.
Yeah. Also,
It's stupid.
months are 0.
Oh yes, months are 0 index, yes.
Days
Days is 1, yeah. Yeah, they screwed it up. Right, I mean, and they deprecated that pretty quickly. It was actually it was kind of surprising, because it's like, everybody uses date, oh, it's great, it's so easy and everything, and it's like, it was so wrong, yeah. There were lots of bad decisions made in the year 1993. A lot of them had to do with fashion, some of them with haircuts, a lot of my own. But yes, the design of the date class was one of them. And so they've deprecated that. Unfortunately, so many people use it, they can't quite remove it yet. Right? I mean, it's been deprecated for like 15 years now, at least.
Can you give a date before 1900?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, okay, so yes. Yeah, it's long. So, okay, right. So the way dates work in Unix and most like C languages and derivatives and stuff is that it's a point in time. I go into this in the lecture notes and everything like that, but the whole idea is that it's a number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. And so dates after that, it's a 64-bit number, so it goes on, for many, many years. So plenty should be plenty of years, and it's the year 2 billion problem or whatever. So positive numbers are after 1970, and and the negative numbers are before 1970. Yeah. Okay. Good question. Okay, what are some other things that people learned about Project 3?
Sorted sets.
Sorted sets. What about sorted? And sorted, not sordid sets, but
Do a lot of work for you.
yeah, sorted sets do a lot of the heavy lifting. What else do you need to do though in order to really leverage the sorted set? Yeah, comparable or a comparator. Right, and that was like one of the lessons I was hoping that you'd get out of this is that leveraging something like sorted set implementation, then you really delegate all the responsibility off to somebody in the JDK writers to get all the sorting right. You just obey the contract, meaning that you provide the sorted set with a comparator, or which I think is even easier, have your phone call implement comparable. Good. How do people find Java's date and time formatting facilities? Date class we don't like. What about date format? Still no? No? Simple date format seem to be fine?
I disagree.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a lot of problems with that because you can set the grammar, right? The text formatting, but then and you can have this function called isLenient. You can add some boolean to this to make it like not lenient, right? But then on one of the tests that ran against it, it passed a case that should have thrown an exception, right? So I felt I felt lied to. Even with a lenient function, right?
Right. Yeah. This.
And
This
I have to have like additional regex to cancel out some cases. But why am I stating grammar if I need to in the formatting function?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that's something that lets us all down. Is simple date format, while it might be simple, the lenient isn't lenient, and I guess you want me to be lenient on the grading, but it's like that's where you would think you'd want it enforced. Now, in Java 8, they introduced a new set of date parsing and formatting libraries, which I think is more strict. You can actually get the the formatting that you'd expect. I should probably check that out sometime to see how strict it really is. But yes, testing, all the good stuff you learn. The API isn't as nice as you'd like it to be. Okay. Cool. Okay. Anything else on Project 3? Okay. Project 4. So over the weekend, I put together a screencast. Thanks for suggesting that, by the way. I think that was you. Thank you. I think that was it. I realized I really hadn't conveyed that detail. So I hope that if you haven't taken the opportunity to watch the bonus screencast from last week, I do what I hope is a sufficient job of explaining Java debugging and sort of how it means and what it works, the pieces, parts involved. Because if you don't have a lot of experience debugging, it can be kind of a foreign concept. Where are people at Project 4, and are there any questions that you're wrestling with that you'd like to talk about now? Say what? Haven't gotten there. Okay. Where are you going to start? So your POA is due on Sunday. What are you going to start for your plan of attack? How are you going to attack? How are you going to approach this beast? Sorry, what was that? Listen to the screencast. That's good. Yep.
So, am I right in thinking? I feel like one of my takeaways from last week was that we're going to have to learn something like Mockito in order to learn how to debug this well. And then a lot of the JU stuff's either going to be overly complicated or.
So a good question. So it's like, hey, I like unit testing, and you showed how you could unit test your servlet with Mockito. That's kind of crazy, right? I'd like to think that there is there's kind of a small part of Mockito that you need to know enough about in order to get it to work. So I would hope that the examples that I provide, which is essentially mocking out servlet parameters, is sort of cut and paste and maybe a little bit of reading on Mockito. Hopefully the dependency injection lecture will give you enough of a background there that you can proceed. That's my hope anyway. And so then I don't think you have to become a Mockito expert by any means in order to be able to test your servlet. And I'll be curious about your experience with that. And yes, I do recommend, but I always recommend test-driven development. And I think those of you who have sort of invested the time, I hope of seeing a return on that investment in that, okay, you know your code works, and as you make changes, you can verify things. But no question, there is a startup cost, including learning enough about frameworks like Mockito to get started there. Okay, so some unit testing and sort of exploring that. Yep.
Am I right that there's going to be essentially a fundamental difference between the example you showed in our case, because in that case it's a dictionary where you have a one-to-one mapping, where ours is a phone bill that maps a name to many phone calls, so we should have more of like a sort of map essentially.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean, so I'll rephrase your question. So it's like, okay, well, I'm looking at the example that you gave, and I understand that. It's a dictionary. It's got a string and a map to the string. But, boy, I'm dealing with a phone bill, and it's got a customer name, it's got calls. Do I need to use a different data structure? Yes. And you've already written that data structure. It's called your phone bill. So, but you have to have multiple phone bills. Okay, so... the collection classes are your friends in this case, but my intent is that you reuse your phone bill and phone call classes, and also your pretty printer. A hint: you won't need your text dumper or your text parser for Project 4. Remember, you won't need it for Project 5 again. So just leave those there. They're on the shelf. You don't need to. You won't need them there. We're not writing anything to files anymore. So you've conquered that dragon. But sorry, the princess is in a different castle. Yeah.
Are we supposed to have multiple different phone bills for customers at this point?
Yes. So now finally, you have multiple. Well, not finally. I suppose technically in Project 2 you could have multiple phone bills for multiple customers if you had multiple files. Okay, right. You could do that, and basically there the file system is your database. Well, in Project 4. You maintain all of that in memory inside the web server in your servlet. So hopefully you can imagine now, how you might approach that. Yep.
And then since we don't have our dumper anymore, essentially once the server gets shut down, we start from scratch every single time.
Right.
We're not loading in old phone
No
bills.
persistence. So it's an in-memory persistence. So as long as your web server is up and running, great. Your client hits it. And can get all that information, but yes, once we shut down the web server, everything gets blown away. Not real world, but good enough, right? Okay. What else about Project 4? Again, the reason, there's a couple of things that make Project 4 more complex. First of all, it's just servlets, right? Different API. But I think what really makes it, servlets and the HTTP requests and all this stuff, but I think what really makes it challenging is that now you're dealing with multiple processes. And I know for me, sort of the first time I saw this stuff, I was like, wow, this is like really different, because it's harder for me to reason about. There's just more moving pieces parts. Yes, so if you're feeling challenged by that, that's that's a fine feeling to have. And I hope that then you can work through it methodically enough so that you can figure it out, reason about it, and get to work. Okay, Project 4. Koans. How did the koans go? So we've been working on those for several weeks now. Okay, I'm still seeing nods. Any interesting learnings there? Were there any koans that sort of popped out at you either because it was like, oh wow, that was really illustrative, I learned something new, or oh, that was kind of weird and challenging, or oh boy, I feel I had to do some contortions in order to get it to work? Anything memorable?
Bit operations was, it's not something that's super.
Oh, bit operations, yeah.
That I've done, so the whole shifting left and shifting right stuff.
Yeah, bit twiddling. It's the 70s. It's like, yeah, right on. Anybody else? Koans? No?
Locale stuff is kind of hairy.
Locale, yeah. Locale gets tricky because it's so dependent on your computer. And so that one, I might even disable that one when I grade, because isn't one of them like printing out the South African currency or something like that? Yeah, right. It's like, oh my gosh, is that going to work on like a Windows laptop exactly the same way as on Linux and stuff like that? So, yeah, that one was tricky, but I hope it was insightful, and I hope it gave you an appreciation, or at least an acknowledgement, that internationalization and localization is challenging, but boy, is it important, right? The software that we write is used all over the world by people with many different locales and languages and idioms and things like that. But Java can handle it if you know how to use it. Okay, codes. Oh, yeah, and the midterm survey. So here again, I think there are a bunch of emails about this. Again, I don't understand what's wrong with D2L, right? Because now some people were able to like view the quiz. I mean, I got submissions, right? So some people must have been able to do the survey. I don't understand why not everybody was able to. Yeah.
I think it was set for the week before it's actually listed, which is why.
It wasn't initially, right? And so I think some people. Oh, I wonder if they did it and then I wonder if I screwed something up. I don't know. This is D2L. So anyway, I posted on the Google community a little things like, hey, if you weren't able to get in, here's like the survey question I want you to answer, and just email me. So I'll take care of all of that as I get through my email, which might take me a while to get through all of that because there's a lot of it right now. Okay. Moving on. Project 5. The final project, due 3 weeks from tonight. So, we've built up a project from your simple classes and objects, through writing to a file, through learning how to format dates, through writing a client-server application, and now it culminates in a rich internet application. This rich internet application, also today known as an internet application, I mean it's just the way the web works now, is implemented using a tool called Google Web Toolkit. The nice thing about GWT, and the reason I use it in this class, is that the majority of the programming that you do is in Java. So even though, yes, it's producing a web application that underneath the covers has HTML and JavaScript and CSS and everything like that, what you do and what I can fit into an 8-week course is in Java. There are some complexities to it. There are some quirks to it. But there's also a lot of power in what we're doing. And so really the goal here is to let you learn about what it's like writing a user interface, and one for the web in this case. And what I really hope is that it gives you an opportunity to be creative. Right? So far, your creativity has probably gone into implementing. The interaction with the user is predefining the assignments. It's a command line based system, not terribly interesting. Well, now I hope in Project 5 it's an opportunity for you to explore designing a user interface, explore implementing a user interface, not only for the user experience, but then also in UI development. There's an important sort of software development or programming lesson in that. Just like your web server, you have a program that starts up and listens for the user to do something with it. It's the same thing with your UI, right? You start the UI, and it's just sitting there waiting for the user to interact with it, to click buttons, to type in text, to move things around on the screen. And the way you handle this is, or rather, the way you handle this interaction, these events that the user sends to it, is key to programming, and it's more of programming a user interface. And there's a different style. There's sort of a different way of looking at your code, and I hope you get to explore that with this project. So the assignment itself is comparatively open-ended, and I'll walk through sort of like the archetype, and then we'll see a little bit of it. So no more command line, yay! So instead, like, the README functionality, instead of being a -README option, because there's no main, there's a help menu that has a README. So you need to learn about menus, and then all the other functionality from your phone bill project. So the ability to add a phone call to a phone bill, the ability to have multiple phone bills, all of the data validation, all of the input validation, pretty printing, searching, all of that stuff is now implemented in a web UI. And so then this gives you the opportunity to force you to explore, how do I do input validation in a UI? How do I how do I store stuff, store information about my phone calls on the server side and then send them to the client side? Another nice thing about Google Web Toolkit, not only is it the Java programming language, but they designed the framework and they have tools to support testing it. So because it's in Java, if you structure your code correctly, you can write JUnit tests for it. You can also, and there's lots more detail about this in the lecture, and we'll dive into it next time. You can also write integration tests for your UI, meaning that you start up something that essentially is your UI, and you can execute code against it. So you're not really testing the HTML, but what you're doing is you're interacting with the objects that represent what's there in your UI. And so it's powerful, and it lets you write a very solid web application using the same programming techniques that you've learned so far in the course. There's a Maven plugin that supports GWT, and it works rather well. And because underneath the covers, GWT is deployed into a web application, just like your Project 4, you can use old friends like Jetty. So that's the assignment. What I'll do is I'll create the archetype now. I'll show you the web application, sort of poke around a little bit to show you it can be done. But again, we'll spend next time diving into lots of details. So let's go to the command line. Portland State Java. Oh, that is loud. I apologize. 2018. Okay, I'll create my archetype here. And it's going to bar for me because it doesn't like login, and that's fine. That work? Sweet. Okay, get status, get it, get add phone bill GWT, get status, yay, add files from GWT, oh, yeah, project, Maven, archetype, jeez. Turn you way down, you don't need to hear that. Okay, nice. So it's got everything. Okay, so I create my my archetype, and I'll do a Maven. Well, I don't do a Maven clean, and then I'll run verify. So remember what verify does? It builds your entire application, runs your unit tests, runs your integration tests. And then make sure that all the integration tests pass. So it's basically your end-to-end build pipeline. And so the first thing it did is compile all the source code. It ran some unit tests against the source code. Now what it's doing is it's taking the GWT source code and generating the application. While it's doing that, I'll explain to you a little bit what it's done, just to mark time. In GWT, you write Java source code, and there's a special compiler that takes that Java source code and compiles it down into highly optimized JavaScript. So instead of, at least for the client-side code, there's two pieces of code. There's two code bases within a GWT project. One which is on the server side, which is just plain old Java code, runs in Jetty, just like your Project 4, your servlets. On the client side, the stuff that ends up getting served up to the browser and that interacts with the back-end code, that is a subset of the Java programming language and the Java APIs that GWT knows how to compile down into JavaScript. And here again, it's highly optimized, really fast JavaScript. So instead of, and I think those are okay. Wait, starting Jetty on port 0. That's interesting. Oh, no, 0 probably is a wildcard port or something. Yep. So there's code that gets compiled to the back end, code that gets compiled to the front end into HTML and JavaScript. All that gets bundled into a web application that you can then run. And so we went and we ran our whole end-to-end application. And so now, if we say Maven Jetty run war, and so what this does is it takes the web application archive, the war file that was created, and deploys it. It starts a Jetty server and deploys it to the Jetty server. Okay, it looks like it started it on port 8080. Let's see what I get. Localhost 8080. This may blow up, I'm not sure. So go to phone bill. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is your GWT user interface. So I've got here, so this is the web that you're looking at, right? So if we go and look, I mean, this is, well, if we go and look at the source, I mean, it's a whole bunch of JavaScript and stuff like that that creates it. But this is web technologies, right? Nothing special here. So this isn't like a plugin running in your browser. It's not a Java applet from a million years ago. This is actual, web code. And so you can click on buttons. And what this does is it goes and then asks the server, hey, send me the phone bill. And it sends over a phone bill object. Another thing that we'll see next week is that you can transfer data between the client and the server really easily without having to do something like write your own text dumper to transform it into text and then read it back. Yeah.
Can you go to dev tools so you see the call?
Oh, yeah, sure. Look at that. Okay, inspect will work. Sure. And what did you want to see? Network? Okay. Yeah. So let's make it a little bigger so everybody can see it here. Oh, here we go. So it's doing all sorts of stuff now. Yeah. Oh, yeah, payload, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's sending over, well, this is the request. So it's calling get phone bill. It's got some like secret codes and stuff like that, so you can't spoof it very easily. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't remember exactly what that means, but yeah. And then if you look at the response, response, it sends back. Oh, interesting. So yeah, so actually it sends back a description of a serialized Java object is what it is. Here again. I'll resist going into all these cool details because I think this is really neat. But yeah, so it's able to send stuff back and forth really easily. Yeah. Anyway. Fun. Okay. So what the Archetype builds, and so the Archetype for Project 5 is very much in the spirit of the Archetype in Project 4, which means it gives you examples of it gives you a very simple application that shows everything that I think is sufficient to get you started. So it gives you both your client side and your server side. It gives you a very simple, ugly UI. It shows you how to handle things like clicking a button. It shows you how to communicate back and forth with the server. And then I have all sorts of examples, really just for teaching purposes, of how to deal with exceptions. Because things go wrong in your program, and you want to be able to communicate that to the user. And GWT has some people might think they're quirky, but it works for the most part. Ways of giving you, even though this is all in JavaScript, you get something that kind of looks like a Java stack trace, which then makes it much easier to debug.
What is the JavaScript like?
So, not that bad, all things considered. I think I have it on, pretty readable mode. You can, when you compile, you can put it into like either super compact mode or super optimized mode and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, trying to figure this out might be fun. Yeah. Anyway, but it's JavaScript. Some of you are taking a web programming course. I dare you to do your final project in this. Actually, you're doing your final project in this in here, so you do the same one. Right? No. So, what do I need to know about that? What else do you need to know? Yeah, it works. Yes?
So that's nice for the errors for debugging.
Yep.
You have some kind of stack trace, but that's not the end goal for automation. It's to show a user. Right?
Exactly
So
right.
nicely.
Yeah. And so then, you might be able to figure out how to put it into debug mode or just comment that out before you submit it. That kind of thing. Yep. So, Google Web Toolkit is really cool, but we will dive into lots of details next time. Okay. Choose your own adventure. So, it's been a little over, it's only like, I haven't even 45 minutes yet. Why am I so sweaty?
126 in here according to
Oh, yeah. That's because GWT is so hot. Let's brainstorm some options for what we want to do next. We'll take a break and then start doing that. So, some things that I could do. We could dive deeper into Project 4. If you wanted to like sort of, expand on what we did last week and over the weekend, sure, I can talk more Project 4. We could work on a Kata together, like write a Minesweeper program, do some pair programming. I don't know, we could do that. I could lecture. I could tell you about design patterns or something else. So I could cover things that maybe are already in the course. What other ideas for how we can spend the rest of our time together? Yes.
We could pair program Project 4.
You lead.
We could do that. If you want to see me do some test-driven development for that, maybe we could do that. Okay. Other ideas. So, oops. What are the? Let me write the options down here. What have I got? Notepad, notes. Oh, I don't think I don't know what those notes are. Well, it's all on camera now. Text edit. That's what I wanted. Okay, so options are more Project 4. Design patterns. Code kata. Go home. Doesn't seem like the best use of my time, but it might be the best use of your time. What do we want to do next? Yep, okay, so show of hands, I guess. Code kata. Nobody. So you don't want... Fine, fair enough. Learn about design patterns. Okay, yep, okay, about a third of the class. More Project 4. About the same amount, maybe a little bit more. Okay. A little bit of both? A little bit of both. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. We'll do no more than an hour of Project 4 stuff to see sort of how to go about implementing it. And then we'll take another break, and then we can do some design patterns. Figure out what that's all about. Sound good? Okay, awesome. So 10 minutes.